Welcome everyone. My name is Liz Sanders. I'm from the Food Embassy and I'm delighted to have with us today is Linda and Kylie. We're here just to talk about two wonderful food system champions in local government. So I'm the co-founder of the Food Embassy and we do a lot of work in the food system space, and I've had the joy of working with these two wonderful women over the last few years. But I thought it would be really interesting to hear from them personally as to how their journey's been around championing food system work. So we have Linda Enright from the City of Onkaparinga. If you just beautiful Linda, and Kylie Marco from Alexandrina Council. So I'm just going to roll some few questions out to you both. I guess the first one to think about is, how did you come to work in the food systems space in council? Linda, would you like to start?
Start with me. Beautiful. Thank you, Liz. So for me, I've been working in the community development section at the City of Onkaparinga for almost 13 years. And that section has always had a bit of a focus on food, health and wellbeing. And so just within the last couple of years, council made a decision to make the food security work a specific role. So a couple of days a week looking at food security and healthy eating across the city and the response to that. So I almost fell into it accidentally in that sense, but it's always been a focus of ours, and I've just found personally that I really loved that aspect that I was working in community development. So me, it was a natural fit, and I'd been involved in food programs right back from when Community Foodie started here at Noarlunga with Liz back in 2001, and so it really made sense to me to come into this position, and just really loving it. So yeah, it fits within our community development, community connections team at council.
Great, thank you. Kylie, tell us a little bit.
So similar to Linda in the sense that it feels like I've fallen into it a little bit. But my history with Alexandrina Council is that I was initially came here working with the OPAL program, which had a focus on healthy eating and physical activity and encouraging that amongst children and families. And then I stayed on with council working in aged care, and then transitioned into a more community development role. And so during that time where we moved into a more community, like holistic community development space, my manager knew that I had that history working with the healthy eating, nutrition space, and had a really strong interest in looking at food systems more broadly. And so when food related projects started popping up, she would just start flicking them my way. And so some of the early work we did was actually working with the Food Embassy on a funding application for the Healthy Towns grant to fund a local food education program. And also working with a community group who were wanting to set up a new community garden here. And so the work has just kind of grown because there's a lot of energy in our community around looking at local food systems.
Exciting, wonderful. So there's a couple of commonalities there, the personal interest, timing as well, and then I guess the support that's around you at the time. So I'm curious now, what have been some of the successes for you, Linda?
Yeah, I think back in 2018, the Onkaparinga Food Security Collaborative was established through one of our community grants, and that's a volunteer group that looks at food security. And so one of the successes I think that we've had is working with that group closely to do some community projects. So one of them was success in winning some Wellbeing SA funding in the last financial year, and that was a response to COVID. And the group, alongside with actually the Food Embassy, Christus Beach Baptist Church, which provides local emergency food relief down here, alongside the Wollonga Farmers Market and Magic Harvest and a few other partners, we ran some community food expos, and that was focused up in the northern area of Onkaparinga. So not sure if you're familiar with the area, but Apple Park, Woolcroft and Ranella. And that was acknowledging there was a lot happening in the food space down Wollonga way, down further south in Onkaparinga, but not as much happening up north. This was an opportunity to work with those communities and talk to them around what they'd like to see around food, how do they connect, and how would they like to connect around food in the future. So we held 3 expos and we held some kitchen table talks again alongside Liz, and started to talk to people around their vision of food. And I think that's been a real highlight for me, just starting to continue the momentum around what is important and how can we move this work forward together and what community really want to see in this space. So that's been one of my things that I've been really proud of being a part of. Another one is that we did some food systems training with staff, and again with the Food Embassy and the Onkaparinga Food Security Collaborative, and that was bringing along a number of staff members across the organisation to look at what a food system is and to see how it connects with food security. And I guess in Onkaparinga, the focus is still on food security in this role. And through working with partners like the Food Embassy as well, I've been able to broaden my horizon to think about how food systems, if we've got a strong food system, it can promote good food security. So I've kind of shifted my focus broader. So that was an opportunity, that training, to bring staff together and to talk about how food systems and food security could be embedded across council. So not just sitting in community development and not just responding via programs, but thinking about strategically, how can we respond? How can we look at strengthening our local economy? How can it have an impact on climate change and our response there? How does it fit with our sustainability team and some of the things that they're running? So, and also a big one for us in Onkaparinga is around food waste. So how does it fit with our waste and recycling team as well? So that training was really well attended and a lot of good discussion, and from that we developed a little group called the Food Connect Officers Group. So we've got an internal group of staff that now meet about every 3 months and look at some actions together. How can we work on this together? So it's really building the internal capacity in council as well as working with community. What's community saying? What are we saying internally? How can we bring those partnerships together and to move that forward? So that's another thing I'm certainly proud of.
Fantastic. Wonderful things to be powerful. Okay, Kylie, what have you been your successes?
Well, we're probably not as far along as Onkaparinga Council are. It's really exciting listening to what's going on in that space. But within Alexandrina, I feel like our successes have also had intersections with the Food Embassy. So we've been able to work with the Food Embassy to run the Food Matters program here in Alexandrina. And so that's meant that we've been able to build some connections with community members who are really interested in supporting local food and building a more resilient local food system here. And that's led us to offering a mentoring program for a few of those participants who had a particular project in mind that focused on improving our food system. And so we've been able to support them with the Food Embassy to develop those ideas and help progress them a bit further. Another big or important part of our journey that's been incredibly helpful is connecting with the food systems network that the City of Onkaparinga, but also a number of other councils and a few state government organisations are a part of, and working with that network on a collaborative project which is exploring how local government can help support resilient food systems in South Australia. So Alexandrina is participating as one of 4 test councils who will go through and test a process for developing a resilient food system vision and developing some actions, some recommended actions that local government can take to help us on that journey to achieve that vision. So that's been really important for us, is finding those other connections. And then the other success, a little bit more internally, has been developing some of those internal connections, in particular with our business and environmental departments, and yeah, just connecting them in with the food systems conversation and learning together how we can each support a resilient food system through our work, while simultaneously reaping some of those benefits for building local jobs and encouraging environmental sustainability and some of those important community wellbeing outcomes around food security and health. So we've got a little bit of an internal working group out of that now, who are feeding into that broader local government food systems project that I spoke about a moment ago. Yeah.
Fantastic. So both have internal working groups, which is a great success, I think. And that other word I keep hearing is connection. But I know with all this, there has been challenges and there has been some good learnings. So perhaps if you could both briefly speak about some of the challenges and learnings. Linda, do you want to start?
Sure. There's certainly been some frustrations along the way. So as I said, this role has been about 2 years, and I think it's only 2 days a week, the position. So an ongoing challenge here at Onkaparinga is the adequate resourcing, I feel like, of this work. And I think it's probably across all councils. And ongoing investment. So let's not just think about 12 months, but let's think more long term about how we're investing in this work. So there's certainly lots of momentum in the community and internally for it, but it's just matching that resourcing with the momentum and with the potential for the work. That's a little bit frustrating, and something that we're internally advocating for ongoingly as well. I think the other thing that is a bit of a challenge is the understanding of what a food system is. And I know in community development, we're always quite guilty of using different jargon. And so for me, it's pulling myself back and saying, okay, people aren't always going to understand what food security or a local food system is. So, you know, bringing people along on the journey around what it is and how it can have an impact and how it can work together is another challenge, because I have to think myself, oh, hang on, and pull myself up on that sometimes. So just the lack of understanding around what it is. And I think also how it can be influenced like across council. So it's, again, building that relationship within internal partners to be able to influence this space. And I think even with our senior management as well, who obviously don't always see what's happening on the ground, it's like bringing them along with the story around how it's so important to work in this space now and in the future. But there's some of the challenges which I know are shared sometimes, but I will go on to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
You know, but
Thank
thanks,
you.
Liz.
Kylie, have you got any key challenges? Probably a bit of overlap.
Yeah, definitely. I can pretty much echo exactly what Linda just said. So in terms of working across council and communicating across council about it, I'm still learning a bit about, you know, the potential role of other staff in other departments and how they might, how some of their work might overlap in this space and who to get involved in the conversation. So that's something that I'm trying to work on and explore with my colleagues, and that sort of brings in the communication thing. Food systems is a complex topic. It's a big topic, and as Linda said, people don't always you know, completely understand what it means and what the implications for our community are across climate change and jobs and food security and health and food waste. And so being able to practice communicating often about what food systems, like what is a food system, what are those implications, and really sort of trying to hone in on what the hook is for the person that you're talking to. So of course, for our business department, their big focus is jobs. And so looking at how a resilient food system and talking through how a resilient food system can support local jobs is something that's sort of helped us move that conversation forward internally. And then the other thing in terms of communication is you know, I've been learning a little bit more about the different channels that we have available to communicate these messages, and it's important, I guess, to use a variety of different channels. So looking at videos and project summaries and, you know, just general conversation. There's lots of different ways to engage different people in that space, and different channels resonate with some people more than others. So if you can diversify, that is a good thing to do.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. I think that's really valuable, and we all learn in different ways and pick up information in different ways too, don't we? Yeah. Yes, Linda.
Can I just add one more thing, Liz? I was thinking as well about, and Kylie's mentioned the local government food systems network that are doing some work in this space, but just I feel like the lack of understanding about the role that local government can play in this space as well. So I feel like perhaps council aren't really clear, and that we're learning and picking up on that. But like, what's local government's role, what's state government's role, and what's federal government's role, and how do they connect and intersect? And so I think that's something that Food Systems Working Group project with the workshops is exploring, and will provide some answers and some direction in that. But I still feel like that's a little bit unclear, which is a bit of a challenge too.
Terrific. Yeah, thank you. That's a really valuable point. Just want to finish off on thinking about, if you were starting again in this role, what would be some of the advice you would give? What's a key one or two quick things you would say to people? This is what you've got to think about. Linda.
For me, I think keep going. Sometimes, as we talked about, can be challenging, but I've learned that like the small little changes and the small little wins along the way really gain momentum in the space and in the work with the community and also internally. So don't give up when it gets frustrating, as you know, you can apply to many different things, not just food systems work. But I think as well, it's been really important for me to build an external team. So obviously have my team within council, but as Kylie was saying, around the Food Systems Working Group, we've got a really strong network across the local governments there. Obviously connections with the Food Embassy, with Magic Harvest, with the Collaborative. So there's a number of people that I feel like are my external team that we work so well together, and we all understand the approach, and we have a bit of a shared vision moving forward. And I feel like that's been really important in sustaining myself personally in the work, but also sustaining the program work within Onkaparinga. The other thing that I think I would say is support community to advocate. So we're learning still in Onkaparinga that community have a loud and powerful voice, sometimes more than staff in Onkaparinga or in council. So if we can support community to speak up and advocate to our mayors and to our elected members and broader, I think that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Kylie.
So just to try and complement what Linda said, we have found it really beneficial to be able to point out the alignment with our council strategic plan, and we had some consultations in 2019, 2020 to develop our current community strategic plan, and through that we had quite a strong voice from our community, or voices I should say, saying that they really wanted council to do more around local food and sustainable agriculture and environmental stewardship. And so that's really given us, I guess, the justification to be putting energy and time into this space. And then the other thing that we've also found really helpful is finding examples where other councils are working successfully in this space. And so we've looked to the city of Onkaparinga in particular, but also others for inspiration, which has then meant that we've been able to take some of those ideas back to our council area and to our community, and you know, implement similar, if not the same things here, or just see what resonates here. And if I may finish with a final one, it's just communicate about the issue. It helps to, like in doing that, it will help you practice your pitch around food systems, but also it enables, like, people need to hear things multiple times for it to sink in. So if you're constantly, you know, rabbiting on about the importance of it, people will pick up bits and it will sink in, and you never know what connections you might get out of that. And that's been a really important learning for myself through this process. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Kylie. I think that's a great note to finish on, is on that notion of communication, which we're actually doing with this, exactly, communicating your learnings and excuse me, challenges throughout it. Just taking away really is that thing about communication, I think, is absolutely key, that internal champions, external champions, and how we can all do our own little advocacy wherever we're at and whatever point we're at, I think. The other thing I think really is important is to celebrate too as we go along, because there are going to be ebbs and flows in all this space, but it's really important work to be doing, and, you know, to congratulate us all for doing it. And, you know, I think we're coming a long way in South Australia around doing some great food systems work. So thank you both very much, Linda and Kylie, for your time today. It's wonderful to share this wonderful work with you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. We'll sign off. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
I'll just stop recording.